Yeah, seriously, this is absurd, folks. So I looked through Korix's games, and most of his are like Rus on Rus matchups. A lot of these players are just spamming the crap out of Rus right now. I believe Sio's doing a lot of Rus. When he's not doing Rus, it's Mongols. And it's almost just exclusively Mongols and Rus in the ladders for a lot of these high-level players. It's almost like they sink a bunch of Elo, and they go, I need to get that back. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to click Rus, and I'm going to make horse archers go brrrr and win the game. And that is kind of what the meta is diluting into. I say diluting because I don't think it's getting to a better quality with us arriving in Rus Horse Archer spam. I do think that there are solutions to it that we've started to see players learn. But yeah, most players just feeling like Rus is the optimal way to play right now, which is why we're going to get exactly that. It's going to be Lipany with Rus versus Rus. Is going to be Give You Anxiety in the blue. Phase we know too well. And the anxious party is going to be Korix. Korix is an interesting one. I've seen him floating around, never really cracking that top 40, but he finally did. And I thought, you know what? To celebrate at Korix, we're going to feature you on the channel, because good job, mate. Now, Korix, I don't think I could find much on this guy when I looked last time. And looking again, I think maybe he played a little bit of StarCraft, but it was never a competitively high-level way he's making a lot of money, right? So this guy seems like someone who's been playing a lot of RTSs. He's not really ever cracked, the money egg and just sucked on all that juicy yolk that is millions of dollars. But maybe this can be the game where he doesn't. Maybe Age of Empires where his future is. Because right now, he's sitting in 36th on the leaderboards, just behind Hera, in fact, with 1,726 ELO rating after 185 games, which is a respectable number, folks. Give You Anxiety, on the other hand, maybe we shouldn't talk about Give You Anxiety. Remember when the game first came out and I was like, this guy's going to be scary. This guy's going to have a lot of potential. I still think he could, right? But something has got to give, because right now he's suffering. Down at 1631 ELO rating, just outside the top 100, 106th in the world right now. Still a respectable number. And with almost 600 games played, he's definitely on the grind, but you can definitely feel like he's slowly slipping and falling down that ladder, right? So, got to switch it around. Maybe a new meta is what he needs. Maybe he's just sick and tired of the Springles and he's been experimenting with all kinds of other stuff and losing the Springles. But that's going to come to an end soon, right? We're almost at the day of reckoning, the nerfing of the Springles. Although I am worried for the future. One thing I will say out of the gate is I think once Springles are nerfed, Magonels could easily take their place. And I think it's almost like I'm a Matisse fanboy because I keep coming back to what Matisse said. He made a Reddit thread about Horseman nerfing and Melee in general, and I think it actually holds a lot of truth that a lot of this game revolves around ranged metas, right? It's why HRE especially is weak source, right? Before, at least they had Springles, but with the upcoming patch and the nerfs to Springles, HRE are going to lose that function, and it's going to be interesting to see, especially for HRE more so than any other civ in the upcoming patch, how they will transition into ranged armies and how they will find ways of putting archery ranges into their production lines, right? Because I think that while it's feasible to go and get yourself crossbow and whatnot as the HRE, it always feels like you sit there and you go, okay, but why am I doing, why am I not just playing France that gets the Arbitriers, right? Or why am I not just playing the Rus and getting horse archers in comparison? And that's the fair question. And the answer I've got for you is economy benefits. And then the response you have is, I'll play Rus then. Because Rus have plenty of economy benefits of their own. You could argue that it might not be as ridiculously powerful as Regnitz Cathedral in itself. But as we've seen time and time again, the reason everyone is spamming Rus on the leaderboards right now is because not only do they have this powerful early economy scaling via the Golden Gate and also gathering extra wood to trade into that Golden Gate, but it's the fact that also, if the game does go ultra late, they have this natural transition to Imperial Age off the back of 1, they maybe put hunting cabins down. 2, they gather up all the relics because they have these boss warrior monks that not only fight, but zoom around the map honestly, I don't know, they've got nitrous boosters in their Formula 1 cars compared to old men that are just driving your crappy old hatchback that your dad gave your dad and... Wait, no, your granddad gave your dad, and then your dad gave to you, and it's been in the family for 40 years, but it barely functions. Because that's what it feels like when you have to push out those normal monks. And that gives a huge advantage, right? Because they're worth 100 gold each. That mobility also allows you to control sacred sites more easily, and that also gives 100 gold each per minute. And then on top of that, we can talk about hunting cabins, like we said. That is something we've seen a few players try to diversify into. It's going to be fun to see in this matchup if either player chooses to do that, by the way. But yeah, all this equals out to the fact that when you get into that late game situation and you're like, okay, we've got to think about Imperial Age now, because your spam out in like the mid game is simply just horse archers, you have surplus gold. In fact, in a lot of cases, we've seen these Roost players just start selling their gold for food to keep the horse archer production going. Now, with all being said and done, I don't think horse archer is an unbeatable strategy. It is a very potent one right now. I think horseman being weaker does make it tougher. But I think if you want to deal with the horse archers, you have to be aggressive early on. Now, this I am excited for, though, folks. This is a switch-up. This is something that I was really kind of avid about, and I've done a lot of myself in the opening week, is a double TC drop off the back of using the Golden Gate. Because the reason is, like, you could actually just trade for the stone. But you notice Korix didn't even bother to do that. Instead, Korix, because these Roost players never go into the gold line anymore, he actually decided to drop a mining camp and put his workers to work getting him the stone. So now he has enough stone for a second TC. He can then trade for the remainder to get a third TC if he wants, and he can try and boom, knowing that his opponent is unlikely to aggress him, because what do we know about Roost players, folks? Before 9 minutes, they don't have military units. Fact. But this does mean he's going to be delayed, right? And you can see that already. Korix, TC being built, but nothing else. This is the punishment factor, right? You've stayed in the feudal age now, and GUA is going to try and punish you for it. We'll have to see if Korix has a way to work around this. He'll have about a minute and a half to make something happen. But right now, he hasn't got anywhere near the food or gold required for a tech up himself. And keep in mind, look what Korix done. He did actually use his charge to buy more stone. And the reason this is a problem, folks, is because it means that he wasn't gathering more gold. So he's even further away from that realistic, reasonable timing of Castle Age. In fact, we're looking at probably post 10-minute Castle Age timing for him, compared to GUA that's about to hit one of the faster Castle Age timers we've seen. I think he's going to actually crack a 7 minute and 10 seconds. Actually might be almost right on the dot for 7 minutes. It's 8 workers on it. So yeah, this is actually a phenomenal timing coming out from GUA. Big chunk of this was down to the bounty, right? He got 410 of the bounty, and that is going to allow him to crack that 7 minute, 10-second timing on Castle Age. And he is going to be a good few minutes ahead of his opponent. What a play out of GUA. Really good timing. I love the way he identifies that he's totally free to do this. He doesn't try for something similar to what his opponent does, which could be the trip TC drop, because he sees that he gets the majority, the lion's share of the bounty system, right? 410 compared to Korix only picking up 225. And now, after the fact, Boar Carcasses also being taken is what has helped GUA, because he shifts out here very early on. And the walls! The walls from Korix! Okay, this is so smart. The scout isn't attacking, but the villager isn't building at least. So you will still have access to the moment. But I love this play by Korix. Korix, with 3 TCs, can afford to send out villagers to the different relic locations and do this everywhere. And they're going to take ages to get through, by the way, folks. It's 3,000 health, and you tend to build horse archers, right? So who is burning this down? Your warrior monk, okay? And religion isn't very effective against wood. Not in this form, anyway. Cool pivot play. I'm actually so excited. I mean, you know what? Like, my freaking leg's going. It's bouncing up and down, joy. Because this game's going to go up and down and who can potentially win, right? Like, this is not going to be a one-sided affair, and I'm so excited to see it. It's going to be because people are doing different things, right? Not because someone is following what the other person is doing, but doing it slightly less efficiently. In fact, a lot of these games, these mirror matchups, right, when they end around 20 minutes, all it comes down to more than anything is who actually hunted more on the map quicker. Because that initial bounty gives you that, you know, gets you across that Castle Age threshold half a minute quicker, and that gets you an additional relic, that gives you better treacle, and that is quite often, honestly, outside of like screwing up micro-wise, been what it comes down to. Different playstyle. Korix feeling somewhat protected because look at this, GUA is not going for the horse archer spam. He's actually building the men-at-arms. This will at least give him a unit to get through these palisade pieces, but I'm able to get through all of them, right? This one got walled off, unsuccessful in the center one. And I think his GUA taking his villager. Oh my god, he is. I don't think it's quick enough, though. Nope. Q attempt. Never going to work out, though. And that does mean that Korix will be able to wall this one off. So Korix has protected only 2 so far. He failed to complete this one because the scout stood in the way. That's why this never got constructed, right? He'd already half-built this, and he needed to get the scout off it. Unable to do so, so... Although he will maybe give himself 2 relics later, GUA is at least going to get the majority for his troubles with 3 out of the 5. And Korix still not ready to scale up, right? He hasn't got a single person on the goal, but his eco is strong. 34 compared to the 42. At the pre-10-minute mark, that's a decent difference that is going to continue to scale. And he's under the gold now as well, right? So Korix understands that with this extra villager count, the way you put it to good work is you actually do go through the gold veins, and that allows you to ego boom past your opponent, maybe even look at an imp age timing quicker than him. Because remember, GUA, he's playing the El Clasico Castle Age Rush, where I just never touch your gold vein, right? I'm just all about that treacle. I get the Castle Age timing, and then I try and spam out X unit. But instead of being standard X unit with horse archers, it's going to be Y unit, which is men at arms. And I'm curious to know why and what the thought process is exactly. My theory is that he knows his opponent has multiple TCs even before he scouted it. I mean, he knows now, right, because he's got a scout in there. But he would have known beforehand by the fact that it's past 10 minutes and your Rus opponent, who is also a top 100 player, isn't in the Castle Age. This only occurs if he chooses to stay there. And yeah, Archer's forced reaction out of Korix. This is not a good situation to find yourselves in, right? You actually do need to get the Castle Age quickly now. You can see he's building more wooden fortresses to protect himself. The reason he needs Castle Age quickly, by the way, folks, is because there is nothing he can build here that counters man-at-arms. Before anyone says Knights, I will warn you now that Knights are not as impressive as you'd think. Really, like early Knights, there's a reason we don't see many players engage with it. Later on, yes, Knights can be amazing as part of a wider composition. But the man-at-arms will just slowly just beat you out, right? And honestly, it's why in this situation, like compared to the Knights, it's just a very cost-effective solution to anything that Korix can do in Feudal. And also allows him to do this, right? Because his opponent's still not castle, he wants to exploit that to the maximum. He wants to get every single one of these relics, and he already has broken through over here with the villagers. GUA just doing what we always see him do, right? Like these pocket expansions. So many players don't do this rapidly, but by 10 minutes in, GUA on average has 2 to 3 pocket eco expansions, right? He's got one up here on the boar, he's got another one down here on the berry bushes, and he got the efficient value of opening up to grab the relic down here as well. And it's just allowing him to plow through. And now it's going to be high trade house from Korix. I like this identification. Not the most optimal placement if you want to get the most gold, but he wants to keep it safe and protected next to the TC. The reason he does this instead of going for the Abbey Trinity, folks, is it's too late. If you're going to do Abbey Trinity, it's about like an 8, 9, maybe 10-minute timing. Anything past that, high trade, like, is actually very good. You are sacrificing these unique researches, right, to do with the Saint's Blessing range and damage, but you are going to give yourself a big-ass gold treacle, as well as eventually unlock the top bounties, courtesy of the deer spawning over time. Or a monk just getting eyeballs on. So high trade post is complete, or house is complete. Gives 52 gold per minute. Like, I think everyone just, I don't know, they just get a boner over the gold, but it's really about the treacle more than anything, right? So he's going to, every 60 seconds, get a deer. That means that this game scales late, he's going to actually unlock all 3 tiers, something that GUA is not going to be able to do, even if he snipes out this boar. So, man-arms, pressuring into Korix again. Korix really needs to get some strong military out now. He's teched up, and it is going to be crossbowman. So this is a good solution. It's actually the best solution he has available to him. He's going to be vulnerable in the meantime, as we're going to see some of these villagers getting sniped out. But GUA is still vastly behind Korix on the count, right? 60 compared to 45. And man-arms are not a fast unit, right? It's not like they just sneak in the blink of an eye and they snipe out a bunch of units like knights would, or like horse archers would. They are at least able to do this, though. Once they stand strong. They don't have to retreat the moment like a tower goes down, for example. They will once these crossbowmen show up. Yeah, so back out. He's choking control, remember? He's got all 3 of these sacred sites, so it's not just the gold treacle, it's now also the sacred site situation. And where did he drop? Ah, there it is. This is a monastery. So if we look at the income per minute, try not to scream, folks. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I expected to see. So keep in mind that each of these, I like to think of it this way, that each of these relics is worth like between 2 and 3 villages on average, right? I think that's a good like sum if you think about the gather rates. So let's say at least 2 villages. I think a villager can do about 40 gold a minute, around that number, without enhancements. So We'll say it's 2 villages each, which means that GUA is saving himself 10 villages. That means that 48 to 66 difference is actually a 58 to 66, meaning it's only 8 difference. So if you can keep sniping the occasional villages, you can even up. The problem is that now with Corks arriving in Castle Age, I find the amount of harassment that GUA got in unsatisfactory. And now, what you've been building is worthless, right? The crossbowmen are starting to come out. What's your pivot? You can't really go into the horse archers, right? I don't think that feels a natural transition. I don't like this either. If it's going to be knights, I don't like this. No. So remember, knights even says here, if you ever get confused, guys, countered by spearmen and crossbowmen. Crossbowmen's pierce damage actually got buffed, so they're actually even more effective against knights. You can see it here, right? It's +9 against heavy, 12 base as well. And as long as you have like a basic front line, it's going to be very hard for GUA to get in. The one good news factor for him right now is Corks has a single military building. Sorry, set 2. He's got 2 now. But they're both the same, right? He hasn't built into bracks. He hasn't built into the stables. So he's limited in that regard, and his composition is very predictable and could still actually be impacted very heavily by the presence of knights. How many pocket expansions? Okay, so TC going down behind. So GUA understanding this game's going to go late. He already got the second TC, right? So this means he's going to even up, and then that gap is going to close. And that means that they're both probably around easily by the 30-minute mark, in fact, have reached their threshold of villages that they require. The reason this will then be a big deal is then once you get to that stage in the game, once you get past like the 25, 30-minute mark, it actually becomes about slot efficiency in terms of your population, right? Like how efficient is my economy? And that's where GUA will have an edge, because as we can see, he's just shy of having the bounties, but he has got 5 of these relics, right? Which is saving him villager count. And that's where he should be able to field a bigger military force and be on even footing in terms of economy compared to Korax. I'm wondering if there is any Gaia missing, by the way. One thing to keep in mind, and it's something that you're going to have to be a little bit careful of if you're Korax, is these deer, at any point GUA could run in and snipe one of them. And if he does, he's going to unlock the 3rd tier. Korax only just unlocked the 2nd tier, which is why he's been kind of struggling and standing behind his opponent despite having the village count advantage. So Scout's just looking for the decap. Shouldn't be pressured too much by GUA. If he just allows that one to get decapped. Right now his opponent isn't capping them himself, right? Because he still hasn't built a temple. And there it is. Finally, Monastery is going to go down. He needed this, right? You just need to actually have Saint's Blessing in these fights. It can make a decent difference. And also, just getting these gold treacles from the Sacred Sites is such a big deal. Especially if you think this game's going to go on for another 5, 10 minutes max. Or sorry, not max, minimum, I'd say. So I feel like both of them are just falling back to gathering, right? There's no immediate hardcore pressure anymore. And yeah, you can see this solution I was talking about that I was worried was going to occur. Your opponent builds crossbowmen, just build archers. It's more cost efficient. Yes, they don't hit as hard, but if you look at the rate of fire situation, like 1.5 attack speed, if we find his main body of crossbowmen, wherever they are, you can see like they're up to 2 per second. But the problem I have with this is like it's a lot more pricey, right? It's 80-40 compared to 30-50. You have to sacrifice gold. And if anything, GUA is the one who can afford to be sacrificing gold more easily right now. I like that they haven't actually resorted to walling in at all, right? You can see that it's just like, it's a protection line of wooden fortresses everywhere, and it's pretty effective. Knights, nice few snipe outs. This is going to matter, by the way, because if you look at the back of GUA's base, you might know something additional going down compared to his opponent. He's dropping the 4th TC. Very important in this matchup now. You've been behind on the TC count for quite a while, right? So you see, now that we arrive on the stage where GUA's like, I can't end the game, I can't pressure his economy, I need to catch up to him. And that means that Korax, while he has the advantage at 98, he's about to hit that threshold, right? We talked about it, like 110, 120. If you really want to go to the extremes, 150 is going to be where you stop. And if you can't then immediately find an advantage, GUA is going to even up to that, and then once again it comes back to the relics. I think stone is being gathered in, a much higher quantity by GUA. Part of it was about the TCs, but this is also going to prep him for aggressive keep drops, right? And he's getting the Magonels. Okay, so no Spirals coming out. I don't think there's even a Siege Workshop yet. No, you see Korax actually drops an amassment of stables. Is this going to be the Knight spam? It very well could be. I don't think you go Horseman in this situation. Horsemen, of course, just being drastically weaker than they once were. But he did actually upgrade to Veteran Horseman, so maybe that's what he is considering doing. It would be a mistake, though. He's already seen his opponent has man-at-arms and has knights. Both of these units destroy horsemen in fights, right? And there's going to be enough of them in this fight that you won't be able to reach the archer line. And I think that's what might be baiting Korix in, is like, oh, he has archers. I have crossbowmen. So I'll use horsemen deal with archers, and then I'll run through everything else with the crossbowmen. But keep in mind the mobility difference, right? Horseman spam seems cool, but the reality is like they move very fast and the crossbowmen do not. So it can be very easy in these fights to become discombobulated. And if you engage with one force without the second one there to assist, you could just lose the fight in the blink of an eye. Moving in the center. Wooden Fortress has been placed here, so a little bit frustrating to try and cap unless he burns it down. And I'm scouting out. I think that was eyeballs on the horseman. And this could be the difference. GUA, because he went for the Magonels, and because Korix chose horsemen over getting Springalds, as we usually see, I don't know how I feel about what's about to occur in this fight. Because these horsemen are fairly fragile at 155 compared to, they used to be 175 at veteran stats. Magonel damage is going to be really good on the crossbows as well. Whiffs the shot though. Knights in trouble. I don't think GUA brought enough troops to this. Magonel's going to get a shot or two out, but it is going to be spent afterwards. And really did not find its value either. So the archer in the meantime going to back up. Crossbowmen are going to keep chasing. And I think GUA really jumped the gun here. Like, you know your production is going to be slow, right? You've got double stable and you're building knights. And did he even upgrade them? I imagine he did. Yeah, he's got normie knights, but it's just so slow, right, compared to the horseman production rates. And as a result, we're just going to see the whole archer army ran down because GUA got a little bit impatient here. And the man-at-arms being produced are far too late now. The chasing is going to occur. Second Magonel to be spent as well. You can try to repair this, but I just don't know how you're going to keep it up long term. What's the price going to be? It's working for the moment, and he's not prioritizing it either. So the crossbow army's losing out. The Magonel is kept alive. Big mistake by Korix there. Did not prioritize the villagers. We'll try to snipe them now. But that Magonel does decent damage to Korix's army. And with the backup Magonel now here, that's going to be the main force spent. And that will buy time for GUA to get the keep down defensively. And while Korix might be rebuilding a new army in his base, he's not able to hit the killing blow this time around. Full backup. Horseman spam continues. Crossbowman army needs to be rebuilt. That was a huge hit. The Magonel value there, it just went from worse to better, right? GUA, each Magonel surpassing the previous one, and really clutch play to get the villagers in place to repair quick enough. I think Korix could have denied that quicker. I think he spent 2 to 3 volleys of torches trying to burn down the Magonel when he should have been prioritizing the villager. And that was 1 or 2 extra Magonel shots, which definitely made the difference. And now this is where it gets wonky, right? The keeps being placed. Horsemen aren't a great solution now. They can't dive in very easily, as you're seeing. You actually need something more. And the forward keep drop out of GUA. Both of them. All that was going on, even we were distracted. We did not notice what GUA done in the north. Not 1, but 2 keeps being dropped. 1 right next to a TC, and the landmark belonged to Korix. And GUA, by the way, if he wants at any time, can snipe out a deer here, unlock his next tier of bounties, and then boost his food economy even better than his opponent. And this is going to force a transition. Korix needs to get this out of his base. Horseman spam, really not the solution. Needs siege weapons ASAP. I like this small pocket expansion, by the way. Kind of feels like something I'd do in an older game like Cossacks, but you know, that kind of feeling, just moving out, walling off an entire area, and then, hey, Gold Vein protected. And it protects the sacred site. And if you want to take that back, it's going to take quite a while, and that will allow your opponent to strike elsewhere, right? So GUA, unlikely to prioritize taking back the southern sacred site here. But the keeper is definitely still a problem for Korix. It's preventing part of his economy, right? As well as making him worry about this north side. Like, what else is my opponent doing here? Is he thinking about expanding? Like, question marks, question marks, question marks. And of course, these wooden fortresses will eventually lose in this matchup, right? Like, it's just a basic health math situation in the end of the day. They both have Springalds, so you can already see that it's starting to crumble. Meanwhile, scouts will identify that walls have been placed up now, so Korix is protected behind this. Needs to reach. Trebuchet made. Big mistake there, though. I think this might die before it gets out of range. Nah, just pulls back in time. So GUA needs to be careful. Wooden Fortress, he actually needs a scout on the high ground, like here over the sides, so you can keep vision. Because that's his problem right now, is he can't see it all. Has gone for the double treb and the battering ram player, though. And is building into Spearman. Interesting pivot here. At this stage in the game, not something we expect to see. I mean, these haven't even been upgraded, right? Yeah, they're not up at vet status. They're just hardened for the moment. He's just looking at cannon fodder that supports the main siege weapons, right? That's all he cares about at this stage. And battering ram is actually built by Korix in the end. Villagers coming in to try and repair this need to be quick, though. Because, of course, they can be sniped by the wooden fortress. Repairs going down. And the villagers are dying quite quick. If anything, they might be more valuable garrisoning now. He'll finally just throw them in there. And it is keeping Korix busy, right? He's got a contingent of force engaging here, which means he's surrendering the center. And that is why he's trying to build up, because he wanted to cover this Imperial Age timing. So he gets to tech before G-Wei. G-Wei still not looking like he's ready to tech up at all. Keep almost constructed, and this is problem town for G-Wei. And a lot has been invested here. Double trebs, spearmen. Where are they at? Did they wrap rounds? Or did they get wiped? There is no way he's got only 7 spearmen against this. I mean, the horsemen, they're going to run straight past, straight under the trebs and the Magonel. This is huge value for them. Big mistake made. Maybe he gets a second treb before losing the horseman. It looks like it is going to be no dice, though. And he'll need to regroup his forces. He finally gets rid of the keep in the north. But now he needs to address the issue in the center. And a keep dropped over here by G-Wei. Okay, this is a really good placement. It's going to snipe out the Eco Pocket expansion. It's going to allow him to control this area, influence this area. And because there's only a warrior monk here, maybe you lose a villager or two, but you just don't care. That's the other beauty of going for this quadruple TC. You can just send in these villagers as attack forces to drop keeps. If they die, whoop-de-doo. I'll just replace them in an instant. He's just running his own birthing center in the back of his base. There you go, keep complete. Lose the garrison at any moment. Warrior monks and knights moving in, and there is so much farmland here. But Korix is reacting to it. And he needs to. The problem is that maybe exposes him on the center where the trebs are still doing work. Poor little Veti spearman. Got convinced that he was He-Man. He was wrong. Oh, and he finds the tree line! So he's going to snipe out a few villagers here. Definitely is expending this force, but if it harasses the eco down a little bit, you're kind of content. Because look at Korix now. 93 villagers compared to 117 from G-Wei. The economy game is being won, and G-Wei understands that, right? Like, yes, I haven't teched up, but I know that my economy is stronger. I know you haven't expanded further with your TCs. I can see that. So in that regard, I can at least leverage this advantage to stay ahead, harvest more of the map, and then turn this into a attritional game where I'm denying you. Like I'm denying you here, right? I can move out soon and take this gold vein in the center, and you can no longer access it. So G-Wei, just very strategic with his keeps, understanding what he needs to do at every turn, which is to prevent any sort of pocket expansions for Korix. Knights moving in again, just trying to snipe out the villagers to stop the repairs going through. Archers wrapping around the side as well. So they pinch in the center as a reaction to the fact that they saw the move to the southeast, right? And everywhere, you can see, like, G-Wei is causing so much frustration with Korix because he's constantly responding to attacks on his eco lines. Something that G-Wei hasn't had to worry about for quite some time. In fact, half of his people don't even work. I don't know what these people are doing here. I think this is the beginning of a Russian civil rebellion. Another keep getting dropped. In the stealth forest. Is being scouted out, though. Is he going to be quick enough is the question. The wooden fortresses gave it away, and the horsemen are going to move in. This is going to be close, but I think he might just pull it off. This is not enough horsemen to wipe out the villages. It's going to be very tight. But make no mistake, this keep is still going to be complete. He's going to be too late to move the crossbowman across. And this is another weakness of this crossbowman amassment, right? They move very slow at 1.12 movement speed. So keep does go down, and he'll garrison in with 5. And the horseman will back away. It's not a worthwhile trade. He'd lose so many units trying to burn this down. And he still has to worry about the center, right? He finally loses that keep. So G-Wei continuing to strangle out Korix's control on this game. And Korix, his limit factor is really becoming gold. And it's so obvious when he doubled down on this horseman situation, right? Elite horsemen are still decent and pretty beefy, right? But he no longer has flexible options anymore. And if he loses this crossbowman army, he's in dire straits. Well, speaking of losing army, 4 trebs here ready to be burnt down. Going to try to protect them. The springles are enough to scare away the horsemen, though. Korix in full retreat here. Needs to worry about the battering rams moving in as well. And remember that quality factor, right? It's what he can't deal with. A small force of spearmen and knights is enough to repel the horsemen. Crossbowmen trying to get close to snipe out these siege weapons, maybe, but they have to address the melee in the meantime. And the springles are still going to town on this force. Korix has the numbers, but seems to just lack the conviction to commit here. He'll finally go in. It took him long enough, though, and it cost him so many horsemen. I don't know if you have the value anymore. He'll get through most of this army, but the delayed move to just jump in there definitely cost him more troops than it should have. But GUA's army is definitely spent. In retreat, way too slow to move away from the horsemen. He needs to replace his units quicker than this. He has got Magonels coming out, and he will get some decent volleys out. Just needs to keep retreating up. Does have the protection of the keep. They might dive in onto this, but that might cost Korix the main army. Crossbowmen, as well as man-at-arms now coming out. Trying to slow this down. Magonels are definitely going to be sacrificed, and that is not good value. He needed to use them onto the crossbows. He needed to wait for them to mass, if anything. It does expend the entire horseman army, though. But how many have been replaced? You can see it's already being rebuilt quickly. Meanwhile, on the sides, more walls coming down. GUA, he wants to funnel all the attention to the center sacred site, right? He wants to strip options away from his opponent. And that's just been the name of the game the whole time. The problem is, look at this force that snuck in. He's looking for the eco pockets. He's looking in the wrong places. Tree line's already been cut through here. So is the southern one. You can see they've moved down into the full south. So he might find some of the eco, but he's not able to shut out the wood production, which would have been the biggest deal, right? Because that's the limiting factor. He knows GUA has gold. It's probably wood that he's running out of on Lipany. The knight's being produced. We had to get rid of the last few horsemen. Needs to move the sprint with the Magonel across. These crossbowmen are very slow, remember. 1.12 tiles. The Magonel's about to remind him of that. Oh, not the best shot. He shot at the back of the formation. Crossbowmen are going to dive in. Magonel should get one more shot out before dying here. And this should be most of the crossbowmen falling now, as they are under the influence of 2 TCs, and the spring will just hitting them from far. So he'll try to trade out what he can, knowing the force is spent. New force coming in, though. More horsemen. Crossbowmen are not producing it as quickly of a rate, but the horsemen should be able to do decent damage if they find the gold line. Especially with the distraction deeper in the base. Horsemen charging in, though. They go into the melee units. They don't go into the villagers. And the villagers turn around, they move out to drop a keep again. But more horsemen coming in. GUA, the keep shenanigans might come to a close here. I do not think this one's going to be complete. However, it is distracting the military force, right? So GUA can move in, and he can punish these clusters. Magonels just trying to snipe in. Keep still goes down. Despite everything, he managed to complete it. He fully garrisons it, and Korix needs to retreat. Every time we think GUA can't possibly do something, he does it once more. And the keeps are keeping him in this game right now. Remember, he hasn't been able to tech up still, right? He's food capped. That's his big problem here. He has to push out so many units. The only reason he's been able to survive this long are the keeps. We'll see how long they can be a saving grace, right? Because there's only so much stone left on the map. In fact, I think, yeah, it's literally this stone outcropping, and then this small one in Korix's base is almost depleted. And then, yeah, one at the center. I think... Oh, wait, no, okay. So there is still plenty in the center. But the center is, like, not safe, right? The big stone outcroppings have been kind of picked apart, or is about to be picked apart as Korix has almost completed this one. I'm pretty sure with the amount of keeps GUA has put down, he already went through 2 stone croppings on his side of the map at least. It's kind of crazy the way that this is just diverging into mass walling, though, right? Like, how often do we see this much walling? Especially on maps like Lipany. I don't feel like it's a frequent occurrence. So Bombard, almost taking out the keep. We'll be able to go back in now. The keep is distracted by the horseman army. And this is where GUA is in a wonky situation, right? You've survived all this time, but you still have not teched up. You've still stubbornly said, I don't need Imperial Age. Imperial Age is dumb. And that's a problem considering your opponent has these bombards now, right? Which counter the keeps. And he never seems to have the quantity required to deal with these crossbowmen. You can see his knights are just getting shredded once more. Villagers will also fall. GUA and 119, but still able to constantly keep that number up for TCs. Really needs to amass a force, though. I feel like he keeps going in with these small skirmish forces. They get sniped out constantly by the horsemen, the crossbowmen, and then he's back to square one, right? He's never able to field an army that is comparative to Korix's. Korix currently up at 90 compared to 57 for GUA. How many? It's Trebs again. So he's got a composite here. Only 2 Magonels, though. I feel like you want maybe 4. But it's such a risky investment to go that heavy into Magonels when you see this horseman overwhelming you, right? The Zerg factor, I mean, you know how everyone was like, oh, horseman dead, horseman suck. Still, in the late game, this effective, as you're seeing. And pushes in. Milks his opponent for all his worth. And so many horsemen. And you can hear the sound of more of them coming, right? The only limitation for Korix right now is his pop cap. These units just can't die quick enough. They push in. They need to protect the siege weapons here. Magonels already on top of, though. He'll go for the long-range shots. That's what it needs. It needs to hit the crossbows out. If you get rid of the crossbows, the Knights can take on the Horsemen, but that is the condition you need to achieve. In the meantime, Bombard's taking out the keep. And GUA is running out of defenses quickly. He needs some sort of switch up. This slow-moving retreat is going to sacrifice most of his siege weapons, as you see. Crossbone is still a problem. We'll force a retreat for the moment for Korix, but Korix, so close to being pop-capped again. Doesn't care. GUA, not able to really feel quality at all, right? He's just been relegated to spears and archers, and that's kind of all he can afford. He has all this surplus gold, but there's no point because he doesn't have the infrastructure to get them out quick enough. And even if he went, for example, Man-at-Arms suck against the Horsemen. The Horsemen are way too fast. This isn't a choke point type map, so considering you're losing all your walls, you're losing all your keeps, you can't actually force your opponent to a funnel point anymore, which means that there's really no value in Man-at-Arms en masse. And that's why he starts to prioritize Spearmen. Spearmen that move a reasonable amount quicker and then also get that bonus damage versus the cavalry. A decent amount as well, putting up to 34 damage per stab. Trophy trying to snipe. Archer's moving in. Spearmen. Hold the line. Slowing this down. Archer trying to back away. Magonel, good shot. He's got 2 more Magonels as well. Korix could lose the entire crossbow army if he's not careful here. And they address the front line as well as the back. Heavy damage done here. That's going to be a retreat from Korix. Korix. Bombards might be exposed though. And he accidentally misclicks them as well, so they're stuck here. And the crossbows cannot protect you anymore. There's just too many troops here. The archers can move in on top of them. Bombards, half health. Looks like he might just get them out of here. Really big investment if he loses them. And remember, Korix is hard gold capped right now, so you can't easily afford to replace these. So important he gets them out. Spearmen trying to give their life to get rid of that huge value of the Bombard. Not able to do so, though. Horsemen do scare them off. They will at least expend the force, but the repair force comes out, so Korix keeps the Bombards alive. Critical detail there, guys. Like, Korix is running out of gold, right? He's got this 1 gold point, which he's not heavily mining. He's finally going to, like, actually get onto it. But the other one's been depleted. Up here is not safe because there's a keep in the north still. And the south one, he got back on it, but it's in danger territory, right? So he needs to make every piece of gold count. He doesn't have that infinite treacle we talked about, courtesy of the 5 relics sitting in GUA's religious buildings, right? And finally, the Impage is coming. GUA, confident that he's pushed his opponent out for the moment and given himself some breathing room, will look to reach the Imperial Age much later than his opponent.
This is something I really want to highlight and praise GUA about, by the way. We saw it, I think, most infamously in that France game where for an extra 10 minutes he stayed in Fuel Age, right, over his opponent. He can be very late on his tech timings, but he actually makes it work, right? You've seen the way he manipulates the map. Instead of like going, oh, I'm going to go straight for an Imperial Age, he invests in this stone mining, right, to get the keeps down to pressure his opponent's base directly. He's not just looking to tech race. And it's interesting when you consider the way GUA opened this game, because the opening of this game for him was exactly that, a tech race. And now it looks like GUA trying to get a head start on the upcoming meta. Up to 10 Magonels. 10! What's the solution to horsemen en masse? What if we just kill them before they reach us? Oh, that's a good idea. It's a good strategy, Tim. Let's see if that one works. And now getting the banded arms research. Remember, they did both go for the high armory. The difference, of course, is that one of them has built springles and one of them had not. Looks like that's finally changing, though. Took long enough, but it seems like Korix is at least bringing a few springles out this time. Of course, Bombards, they kind of function like a springald with how hard they hit, but they're a lot more costly. Villagers moving out. Just slapping down wooden fortresses. And Korix is not addressing it right now, right? Because he has to worry about the main force. And the Magonel spam! The damage! Heavy hits! Third of the army just gone like that. Korix in a bit of trouble with that. And all of these wooden fortresses that GUA snuck, it's going to protect the villager forces. And this is such a cool way to try and push your opponent back, right? It's a distraction, but it's also a means at which you militarize your villager count. And they can keep building more of these. They can keep moving forward, right? It's a lot more tanky and a lot more protected than just sending a unit out in the field where it can be sniped like this. Not to mention that it's much more cost-effective because these only cost 50 food each, these villages, right? And you're turning them to archers, essentially. But who needs archers when you've got giant boulders being hurled at your opponent? Korix pushed back once more, and for the first time in a while, GUA arrives at the center of the map again. This wood line soon to be cut through. Might be that he tries to cut Korix off on this gold vein. Not much left to it anymore, down to 2.8k. But GUA, it's slowly working. he is starting to run out of wood, and he switched over the north side. And this is where the juicy facts come in, right? Like, he's got so much left here. His opponent is drying up on all these fronts. And it's going to come down to this center area. And you don't feel confident moving towards that, right? Like, neither player wants to be going towards that wood center anytime soon. And if you're talking north side, because the keep's still up here for GUA, he has value. Like, this is his terrain. So if it comes down to a resource drain, he still has more of the map than Korix does. Another keep where it once was for Korix. Pushing coming out from the cheap units, the archers and the spearmen, just to snipe onto sim economy where they can. Remember, he spammed Magonels. Trebs were slowed down on production. He's still got one here, but it hasn't moved up to the keep. It'd be very hard to get through this keep quick enough, in fact. So he expends his force once more. And now GUA, plenty of pop cap room to replace with. What's it going to be? What's the call? It's going to be just more spearmen. Spearmen and archers. He's basically playing the budget game back against his opponent. Most of the Magonels are gone, but they definitely serve their purpose. And it did force this transition, right? So now Korix investing a lot more of his pop cap into the Springles. Means that he's not just amassing horsemen in an unlimited number. However, the crossbowman will still be a problem regardless. It's something that GUA needs to address. Like, this was a nice move with the idea of the Magonels, but because he didn't back it up with Springles, he's now at a disadvantage. And you see him backing up once more. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that GUA got quad that way as well. Like, he has huge surpluses of food, right? He could trade into gold if need be. But he has some options available to him. I think he could have went horseman himself in this situation. It actually would have been a solid shout. If you know your opponent is likely building Springles, and still the crossbowmen, like the crossbowmen, yes, they're very frustrating because they deal more damage to the horseman because it's heavy. But overall, I still think that the horseman can be a reasonable solution when you're worried about Springles. You could even think about amassing scouts, right? Actually, a very popular play we've seen utilized before in Bruce matchups is just you plant down like 5, 6, maybe 700 cabins, and then you run in an army to burn through the Springles. Now, I think the crossbowman would shred you fairly quick in this situation. It's definitely a strategy to utilize more in Castle Age, but something that was never utilized at any point in this game because, of course, Korix waited until 40 minutes in to switch into those Springles. On the push in. So that's one bombard. Villagers giving their lives for question mark. And GUA just really not reproducing quick enough here. Probably could have done with more infrastructure, but he's capped on the wood again. And where is his wood line? Where is his wood line? Oh my god, GUA has 2 people working on wood right now. Oh, this is catastrophic. He's full hard on capped right now on the wood front. He's finally going to fix it, but it's a long run to get them in place. They all were over here. And this mistake could cost him a large chunk of this center map. Another keep full. Only one left protecting his main base. That one is about to turn into none. Springles outnumbered. GUA. That woodline mistake may have cost him a lot more than intended. It slowed the production on everything, on archers, spearmen, and Springles. And it means he's outnumbered on all fronts right now. GUA continue to retreat. Just around 50 military. Korix doubling him up right now. And he's definitely sending the pain. You can see this constant trickle in, right? The horsemen as well. Just so effective at reinforcing the main fight because they arrive so quickly to the front with that 1.88 movement speed. And I think this might be over. I don't see how GUA built up a force quick enough to actually counter this. His military district's at the front of his base, right? And yes, he does have a lot of it, but he's still kind of capped here, right? He's only just hit the 500 threshold on wood, and he's not really investing it anywhere right now. Yeah, he's going for the upgrade, so he's trying to get into knights. I just don't like knights, and you're still dealing with with the crossbowman, right? Your opponent never switched out of that. Yes, you forced a pivot on the siege front, but the main composition for Korix has always been the same, horsemen and crossbowmen. And can I just say that's the most amazing part about this game, folks? Right, this game has been going on for over 40 minutes. At no stage in that 40 minutes plus have you once seen a horse archer in the field. Not one. And I don't think we're going to see any ever in this game now. GUA, maybe Streltsy could have been an option, but Streltsy is just so wonky when you consider how slow they are when they're up against the horsemen, and considering they have similar range to the crossbowmen. It probably wouldn't have been a worthy solution, right? Especially when you consider the production time of 26 seconds. He needed cheap, fast productions. And that's the problem, right? Because he didn't keep this woodline up, because he wasn't being efficient in that regard, the punishment is here. It's the fact that, yes, those units are cheap,
yes, they're quick to produce, right? Yes, you're going to reach your popcat quickly, but if your opponent has got these high-quality units with the bombards, with the springals, with the elite crossbowmen, and he reaches his popcap at all, he has quality and equal quantity. At that point, you don't have the Zerg factor anymore, and that's where GUA has vastly suffered in this game. He continues to do so, as his main base is being exposed. Now, he has got one of his landmarks far at the back, but he's still hesitant to move in. I mean, how do you move into this? You don't. Instead, you get pushed back further. Switch up, trying to get those knights out, but it's like 2 stables, 3, maybe 4 that are actually successfully getting the units out. The others are too close to the front line. And he's going to have to charge in, and those knights, not effective against the crossbowmen, remember. Carried out pretty hard. In fact, the villagers even getting involved in the fight. They need everything, every single person. One person gets a gun, one person gets ammo. This is Stalingrad all over again. Maybe this is actually the prequel to Stalingrad right now, and it is not going as well as the whole did for the Russians then, as it looks like the force is going to be wiped. It is just archers left over. Most of the crossbowmen gone, but the trickling continues. GUA now down to 70 military units, matched by Korik's 70. But it's mainly archers now, right? And the horsemen are rushing in. And with the Springals still here, GUA is in, well, I mean, more and more trouble, right? Every second that passes, it just seems to be getting worse for him. But he's switching to the Streltsy now. He actually found time for it. He's got 6 out. Streltsy, not too bad at taking out the Springals. And that's going to be siege weapons wiped. Korik's overstayed his welcome here. It's going to be repelled for the moment. But the horsemen coming in, scare off the Streltsy. And every time you think, just for a second, GUA, maybe he has taken an edge here. Maybe he finds a way back in this game. Korik's gives him a gut punch and pushes him back again. And I don't know how long GUA can keep Streltsy production up, right? Like, he has that infinite gold treacle, but he doesn't have these gold veins anymore. He's dried up. The only thing he really has access to is wood and food now. And that's going to be his limiting factor. And since then, Korik's has shifted out. You can see that he's actually started to gather on the gold, right? He's started to expand forward. He's looking for these pocket expansions, getting onto the wood line in the center that we said was so threatening. And this is making the difference. It means that GUA, in the next 1 or 2 minutes, is going to be stripped of all resources around him. And Korik's is going to have 2/3 of the map to work with. Push in. GUA. It was a nice attempt to hold. I like the idea to try and switch into some sort of quality unit, but I think it came too late, and this is a result. The irony of Korik's now being the one to drop keeps into GUA's base is not lost on me, and I don't think it'll be lost on him either. And with this stronghold, this foothold in GUA's base, I think he is more or less surrendered over to the truth of the matter, which is there's no way back into this now. He's pinned in. And what a play out, Korik's. What a way to actually open this game. With the trip TC into GUA's quad TC, into the Imperial Age boom beyond his opponent, into GUA holding for so long against that Imperial Age, only to arrive in Imp Age and it not matter at all, as Korik's still continuing to just trickle out units available in the Castle Age, and before, has made the difference. With just a few buildings left and his TC on fire, GUA, a valiant effort, but a futile one nonetheless, and Korik's will take the game. The GG gets called, and what a Roos on Roos showing. No horse archers for miles all around, 40 minutes plus, Imp Age on both sides, and barely any Streltsy. What more could you ask for?